The Ugly Stepsister. So it's another week and things got busy. I went to the beach and I missed Ballerina and the new Predator film, Oh Well, to Shudder I Go. And while I actually watched Freywaka this week, I wanted to review and talk about The Ugly Stepsister instead, which I saw a couple weeks ago and didn't review. So anyway, let's do that. I heard a lot of good press about this supposedly realistic take on body horror and the Cinderella story, but from the stepsister's point of view, that sounded pretty good, so I figured it might be a good time. However, it is a Swedish film, and I was extremely hesitant given the last Swedish movie I watched, Leave and Getaway. I don't know if you count Getaway as Swedish, but it takes place in Sweden, I guess, but either way, they were both not great. You can watch my rant about them up there in the corner if you're curious. Please check those out. I'm happy to say that this film is definitely much, much better. Still not great, and probably needed to lean a bit more into the comedy side of the genre, but as a tragic tale of beauty standards and the struggle to conform, and having a lot of fun subtext that fits well in the Cinderella mythos, it's pretty fun. So then let's get into it. What is this movie even about? The Ugly Stepsister follows the older stepsister from the Cinderella myth, Elvira, as her mother, Rebecca, marries a widower with an adult daughter named Agnes, Cinderella. When the father dies suddenly on their wedding night and it's revealed that Cinderella's family is penniless, Elvira and Agnes, again, Cinderella, she's just named Agnes here, must compete in order to gain the affection of the kingdom's prince in order to fix their money woes. So yeah, it's Cinderella, kind of. Agnes is Cinderella, and she's even called that late in the film as a derogatory nickname, which is the point of the original name, so that's cool. Elvira and her sister Alma are the ugly stepsisters, quote unquote ugly, they just kind of look normal, and Rebecca is the wicked stepmother. I do appreciate that this film takes a step back and explores that there really isn't anyone evil in this movie. The stepsisters aren't evil at all. The mother has her moments, but isn't too crazy. There are just desperate people down on their luck, struggling to get by and get what they want in a world that really doesn't work for them. Elvira and Agnes seem like they'd be great friends at first, but once Agnes's father dies and she's forced to live with this family that she knows nothing about, they're strangers to each other, the disdain is very clear to see. I like how the film shows that she isn't really stressed about the situation, but more so because of the stepmother's single-focused push into trying to get money, delaying her father's burial and leaving her in constant mourning. That's cool. That's neat to see. I like to see her struggling with, I'm trying to be nice, but the thing that's important to me is constantly getting ignored. I'm getting frustrated. I'm going to take it out on the rest of the family. It's believable. It's realistic. I like that. And then to follow that up with Elvira struggling to empathize with Agnes, but then fervently chasing her dream of marrying the prince that suddenly becomes a reality, even though he's a man she doesn't know and has to force her body through some honestly horrendous surgeries and beauty schemes of the time. It's just a really nice chaotic angle. You have Agnes, who is already perfect and doesn't want any of this, but is forced through it anyway. And then you have Elvira, who desperately wants it and forces herself through it. She could just relax and let Agnes do everything, or even work with Agnes and get everything taken care of. But no, it turns into a bit of a rivalry that's reluctant on both sides. I really like that. The film explores a lot of different themes using these girls, such as how cruelty begets cruelty. Agnes isn't perfect and can be straight up mean to her new sisters out of grief or pettiness, and then the sisters aren't very kind right back to her because of it. It's a very interesting dichotomy that follows what each girl is willing to do the more desperate they become. Agnes isn't interested in the prince at all, but is essentially forced into trying for his hand, and Elvira is so desperately eager for it, but has to force herself to change in order to even get a chance at what she wants. It's remarkably unfair to both women, and that's the point here. I think the acting overall is pretty decent, and lends itself to this kind of situation pretty well, especially from Elvira, played by Leah Myron. The amount of emotion this girl has to go through over the course of the film is ridiculous. She starts timid, meek, embarrassed by her looks and her braces, but then has to embody anger and hopelessness until it shifts to pure confidence and ego before crashing back down to desperation and malice. It's a wild coaster of emotions, and Myron handles it all perfectly. Really good work, love every scene she's in, even if I'm cringing at what she's doing. I have heard that there's a similarity between her and the main few characters in The Substance, but I didn't watch that movie yet, so I don't know. I'll definitely check it out later, and that might be cool, but either way. I'd be remiss if I did not point out Agnes as well, played by, I hope I pronounced this right, Thea Sophie Locknice. Having to portray Cinderella is one thing, but a gritty, angry version in mourning is a total other step that is honestly a lot of fun to watch. She's pretty and confident, but also clearly deeply hurting and angry at the world. She really just wants to bury her father and move on, and is not being allowed to through no real fault of her own, and is justifiably upset about it. So there's a lot of nuance here. She's angry at the world, her new stepfamily, and everything that she has to go through. I find it interesting that she's the one chosen to start the cycle of cruelty in a fit of grief. It's a really interesting choice, and Nas here will have you torn as to who you're rooting for, either her or Elvira. Lastly, I want to point out the mother, Rebecca, played by Ann Daltorp. She is supposed to be wicked or evil through the classic story, but here she's seen more as a desperate woman willing to do next to anything to put herself in a position of wealth or power through her own life, her own body, or her daughters. She can still be wicked at times. There's definitely a few moments that are very insane that she chooses to do, but it's a lot more grounded here. It's not evil to be evil. There's a reason for everything she's doing. The film does a good job of showing why she's so desperately pushing everyone over the edge, while also making her own sacrifices as well, and stuff with her own body, which is another interesting piece of commentary that I wish the film dove into a bit more. But it does question the morals and where the line needs to be drawn. She's kind of all over the place in that regard, crossing all the lines, but I still kind of like it, but I feel like it just needed a little more focus. Which, unfortunately, the film does slip a little in that regard. I think the movie is focused just a bit too much on Elvira and Agnes that it misses the mark with the rest of the family. For example, Elvira's younger sister Alma gets only like 2 scenes to show off her character and how she cares for her sister, and then she's sidelined to a background character for the rest of the movie. It's very strange. I understand why she's not a focus, because she can't actually try and win the prince's hand. There's a throwaway line about her not having reached puberty, so she's not eligible to be hoisted off to a man yet, which I'm not entirely sure that's how that worked in the time, but still, I feel like that could have been explored a little bit more. The mother does have a bigger role than, say, the wicked stepmother in the original Cinderella or the Disney movie, and a lot of her manipulation does make sense in regards to their money troubles and how desperate she is to get out of them, but it gets to the point where it's just too cruel for no realistic reason. Like maybe she just jumped off the deep end too early. Maybe if they pulled that back or showed her own scenes struggling with everything, it would have been a bit more empathetic, but There's a point where Elvira is screaming at her that she's dying, and the mother just kind of shrugs and continues doing everything else, so it's so strange. Maybe that's the point, since this is still a fairy tale. It does have a couple of supernatural moments from the original story, like the pumpkin carriage and everything, but it's a background detail. It's very odd why it's still there then. I'm not sure. I think maybe if the film was a little longer, it's sitting at about 1:50. If it was closer to the 2-hour mark, maybe it could have explored this messed up family a bit more, a bit better. It just feels like way too much is happening in the background that we never get to see or have to piece together ourselves. Thankfully, the body horror aspects are fairly solid with good gore effects and some terrifying surgery moments that will have you squirming because of how visceral they are. Did you know women used to have fake eyelashes sewn onto their eyelids? Oh my god. Most people I've seen mention the tapeworm scene here, and while I think that particular scene is okay, it isn't as wild as I was led to believe. There are some bits that are exaggerated, way more than the otherwise realistic portrayal would have you expect, especially considering the more fantastical elements of the Cinderella story that I mentioned that feel very out of place. I think it's still a solid movie, so if I were to improve the film, I think I'd add a few scenes. I don't think I'd delete anything, I think it just needs some more additions. The family as a whole needed more scenes together. Rebecca, the mother, needed a lot more solo scenes to flesh out her character, and Alma just really needed to have her input seen more in general. She was in a couple of other scenes and had a couple of more lines. I think it would have gone a very long way, but we just don't see that here, which is a little frustrating, but what are you gonna do? Otherwise, there's not too much I would change. I think this is a very solid, very squeamish bit of body horror and comedy that handles its subject matter and messages pretty well. I can see people unpacking a lot of the themes through discussion after watching, maybe about the prince too, because he's barely explored and he definitely seems a bit different. There's a scene where his friends are objectifying women, and the whole ballroom scene where the whole thing is essentially objectifying women, and he doesn't really seem interested in it, but he's never explored, so I don't know why they bother to try and include that. There are also some moments where a woman is hinted at being a lesbian, and exploring that kind of relationship in this world would be interesting, but again, it's just a hint at, it's never fully explored, so I don't know, there are a lot of just loose ends here, and hints at topics and conversations that the film just doesn't seem interested in tackling, or maybe it did and those scenes got cut, but I don't know. There's a lot to explore here that just isn't. So I think maybe it needs more discussion. What did you guys think? Talk about it in the comments, please. Overall, I wouldn't say that this film is one of the greats, but it is certainly worth a watch. Just fair warning, it does include a lot of full nudity and gore, so heads up if you're not comfortable with that. There's a lot of that in here, but otherwise, I say give this movie a watch if you're curious. It's pretty decent. So ultimately, The Ugly Stepsister gets a 6.5 out of 10 from me. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around for another one. Woo, this was like a stream of consciousness trying to get this out here. I've been struggling working on a whole bunch of other things that popped into my head that I need to get written down or submitted. I've been trying to audition for a bunch of different places. I have a whole nother short I want to direct and film and get that done, but I have to write everything out first, and my head is a jumble. Oh my god, it's all over the damn place and I hate it. I just want to get stuff done. And I keep hitting roadblocks. That's life for you. Anyway, what did you guys think? Did you see this movie? Do you even like Cinderella? Personally, I think it's fine. Cinderella, what else can they really do with it? The story's been done to death. I do appreciate this darker look at it with a more realistic story. I just don't know why it kept the supernatural elements. If it was going to stay realistic, just okay, whatever. It's a choice, and it's a background choice. It doesn't really affect anything at all, so that's fine. Whatever. Let me know in the comments below, what did you guys think? After that, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss a video, and yeah, that's it. Have a great day, and if you're not, have a better one. See ya.
I'm just a ghost in your stereo, the fading memory of a shipwreck in the undertow. You're just a lost song on your own, and I'm just a ghost in your stereo.